I recently sat through a systematic theology class, and this is not bragging, but I definitely knew more than the teacher in a lot of respects. And I had to kind of help him explain his own point that Protestants believe in the Filioque. Mm-hmm. This is something I'm really ignorant on, but tell me if this is what the Filioque is, that from the Father proceeds the Son and the Holy Spirit, but also from the Christ, the Son, the Logos, he can also, or the Holy Spirit also proceeds from him. Is that accurate or wrong?
Well, that's not enough to clarify because everybody can agree to those phrases. So the dispute is over what's called the ontological Trinity, and you're probably familiar with that term, as opposed to the economic Trinity. And so the dispute
the monarchy of the Father.
Correct. Yeah. So the dispute is not whether the Spirit is in any sense sent by the Son, but whether the Holy Spirit derives his hypostasis and his existence from the Father and the Son as from a single principle or source. And the reason we use that terminology is that that's the Augustinian terminology from On the Trinity that is cited at the Council of Lyons and the Council of Florence. So for the Roman Catholic West...
Is that the shield, the Augustinian shield that you often see?
The shield is a medieval result of this idea. But what I'm saying is that in the West, it is dogmatically stated for the Roman Catholic Church to be dogma at 1274 Lyons, and then a couple centuries later at the Council of Florence. And so the dispute, the official split between East and West on that issue is not 1054, although there's already argumentation via Photius's mystagogy prior to 1054 between East and West. The official dogmatic split is 1274 and then Council of Florence a couple hundred years later. And again, so here's the key issue. Lyons and Florence state, quote, together the Father and the Son are the source and I'm paraphrasing it, but it's basically saying that the Father and the Son together are a single source, an eternal hypostatic origin and source for the Holy Spirit. So the debate is not about whether the Son sends the Spirit into the economia, into time and space. The debate is not about whether the Spirit is eternally manifested from the Son, which is an Eastern teaching as well, but whether the hypostatic origin of the Spirit is both Father and Son. And the reason for that is in part, yes, that the hypostatic property that picks out the Father is cause. And that's stated at Constantinople I, when Constantinople I accepts the Cappadocian Trinitarian theology. So basically, there's only one cause in the Godhead, and that's the person of the Father. It is not the divine essence. And if that's the property that picks out the Father, then Son and Spirit cannot share in that unique hypostatic property. So Roman Catholics oftentimes will inject, well, the Son is a secondary cause. He's not the principal cause. No, there's no secondary causes. There's no participation or co-cause, because it's the property that literally picks out the sole source. So again, what is the terminology of Constantinople I? Sole source, S-O-L-E, sole source. Well, if he's the sole source, then there's not a co-source, you see. So the Son's hypostatic property is to be generated by the Father. The Spirit's hypostatic property is to be processed from the Father. That procession occurs through the Son, but that does not make the Son in any way a cause of the existence or the hypostasis or the nature of the Spirit. Everything that the Spirit has, he derives whole and entire from the Father, just like the Son derives his whole existence, nature, hypostasis from the Father. In other words, if the Father generates a whole and complete Son, and the Father is then going to process the Spirit, there's no parts to this. He can't process part that the Son, he puts out 50% Holy Spirit, the Son puts out the other 50%. That's impossible. You can't have parts or wholes in the Trinity.
Right.
So any procession must be from the Father, must be as whole and entire as the Son's generation is whole and entire. Okay?
Yeah.
And so go ahead.
Biblically, that makes sense too, because Christ says all the time, I'm doing the will of my Father, the one who sent me.
Correct.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Every movement.
Economically,
By the way,
Son, oh, go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
Would you say economically, or maybe that's wrong, or in the economia of the Trinity, the Holy Spirit and Christ are equal there, or is that wrong?
Well, they're always equal, whether in the ontological Trinity or in the economic Trinity, because it's not a question of equality of nature, but it is a question of submission to authority. So, for example, Jesus says, "I do what the Father wills," and that has no metaphysical subordination, but it has a subordination according to origin. So Basil and the Cappadocians make this very clear, that there is a kind of willing subjection, you could say. By will, I don't mean that the persons have different wills, but that the Son always does the will of the Father, right? And
so does the Spirit too.
Correct.
Thinking of Romans 8, he who searches his heart, I think knows the Spirit because the Spirit knows the will of God, and that's how he intercedes for us, is what it says.
Right, and this is also why you can't, for example, which we see the later Latin theological tradition doing, you can't reduce the Holy Spirit to a common energy or attribute, such as love. And this absolutely happens. In fact, by the time of later traditional Roman Catholic theology post-Trent, Ludwig Ott says that the Holy Spirit is the will of the Godhead. No, you can't confuse will and person. And
because that would just make it an energy, a singular energy.
Absolutely, not correct. Yeah, it would be to do the Arian move with the Holy Spirit. Yeah. So the Arians said that the Son is a product of will. Well,
right, that's almost reductionist to me too. I mean, there's no co-equality in the Trinity at that point. If
correct.
It's merely a singular energy, not even multiple.
Correct.
And there's even is grace an energy as well?
Well, the uncreated grace is all of these divine attributes and properties that we partake of: divine love, divine justice, divine wisdom.
Okay, categorically a little higher. Okay.
Well, they're
they are the energies.
Yeah, the energies are grace is the energies, and the energies are grace for us. In terms of God's, it's in terms of God in the economia, but the exchange of these energies, or for example, the love of the triad between the persons, that's an eternal reality that is not contingent upon the created order. So the energy of love, for example, the Father eternally loved the Son. The energy of glory, right? That glory that Jesus...
That's why we can understand love at all, is because of the love the Trinity has amongst
correct.
itself.
But this is important because any theology that messes up the order, the hypostatic ordering here, and hypostatic properties will of necessity mess up attributes and energies, and they'll confuse the energies or the attributes that are proper to God from all eternity with the energies that are proper to God in the economia. So, for example, God has not always exercised foreknowledge to the same, or let's say providence, in the same way that He's exercised eternal love, because providence God has the potentiality, but He's not always exercised providence. And so you have to make a distinction between the attributes that are proper to God from all eternity and the attributes that are proper to God only in regard to the created order. Otherwise, you will have eternal worlds or some sort of Origenist heresy or Thomist heresy where you can't know God. So you see how that's different? Like providence is different from glory. It's a divine energy, but there's different divine energies. And if you don't distinguish different divine energies, you'll end up in these heresies, and everybody who believes in the Filioque way fails to do this very thing, which is completely destructive. I mean, imagine thinking that divine love and glory are synonymous with divine providence. So is God eternally providential, exercising that providence? If so, then He has to have a world over which He's eternally provident. So this is actually, that's eternal worlds. That's devastating to any doctrine that makes all of the attributes identical amongst themselves or identical to the divine essence.
Okay.
Do you understand why?
That's a lot. I have to think.
Well, hold on. So let's just think about it. Let's think about it. So most people who believe in the Filioque, for example, I'm just teasing out one of the implications of Filioquism and the energies, because everybody that screws up and messes up on ADS and attributes and energies will make this mistake without even realizing it typically. And here's the mistake.
Okay.
If you say that God's actions and attributes and energies are synonymous amongst themselves and synonymous with the divine essence, and then I say, okay, is the divine essence eternal and necessary? Yes. Okay, so divine providence is now eternal and necessary and not an act of free will?
Oh, okay.
You see?
That helped.
Yeah. So that means there's an eternal world where God was exercising providence from all eternity.
Okay.
So I need different energies and different actions of God. That's why St. Gregory of Palamas, when he debates with Barlaam, says, what do you think it means when it says God rested from his works? That means he's not doing the work of creating the world anymore. That must require the essence energy distinction.
On the seventh day.
That must require, you must have the essence energy distinction to have that.
Oh, right. Because then your concept of rest is deeply flawed.
Well, no, it just means that it just means he's not doing the act of creating the world anymore. If God's actions are synonymous with his essence, then he's eternally creating, you see.
Oh, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
Just to
correct.
help you make your point.